the impact of what happened during the 2009 uprising was very interesting because all of a sudden the American media was its only interest became that. And I remember like very vividly, like when Neda was killed on the street, CNN had one day, the entire programming of CNN as if there was nothing else happening was just like this image of Neda and the story around that. It must have like they must have repeated it at least 50 times during the day in a way that it really created this sense of apathy and indifference. It also numbed people. That you really like, and that's what I think that the American media is really fantastic in doing that. It has created this sense of powerlessness and apathy in the public. It's everything is moves from the uh, basically reality and fiction is so blurred, the boundaries of this thing, that you really don't get a sense of what is the life that you're living, what could you do, what is your effective action. In a sense, in all effective actions, it's like they have created this situation that it feels like it is like senseless and has no effect and functionality, and it leads to nothing, and therefore there is this like sense of powerlessness. Uh, I think despite all of that, what happened and what was really amazing, and I think that this is again going back to the nature of the way that these videos were made and photographs were made, that were on a grassroots level, and as you mentioned, there's this element of voyeurism probably, or like grassroots journalism. What happened that basically the images that hit the American media, that came to American media, they didn't have that sense of overwhelming production, and as a result, they related on a different level to people. That is my feeling. And I think that the other impact of it was that for the first time, the American people, public, they were looking at images that they had never seen. They were like millions of like young, beautiful, forward-looking, modern people that were like marching peacefully, hand in hand, and this was so much in variance from like this manufactured reality of Iran and what was going on for the last 30 years, and all the images that were manufactured of this backward, fanatic society. So I think that the sheer impact of these images and for what they were, the way that they were produced, despite from the intention of the media, was very, very great. As you mentioned, it seems that our case, as Iranians, it seems that this fact that the history it's repeating itself is so tangible. It's really, I mean, if you look at Iran's history for the last 100 some years, there has been a continuous struggle, for like basic human rights, for like institutionalizing democracy, and every time that there has been any progress, before it really starts to like have any life and like grow in this way, it has been crushed. And it's a very complex history. Why? Mostly for foreign intervention. A lot of times for foreign intervention. A lot of times because of like betrayals and the backwardness of like the, the intelligentsia and the people that rule in our country. But it has been systematically almost every 30 years an uprising, the aspiration for change and democracy and some values, human right values, and then it has been crushed. So what was really uncanny and very very interesting was that I remember when we were like actually editing, we were at the stages of post production in Paris. When these events in Iran started to take place, and we couldn't really believe our eyes because we were editing. Even there is a character called Munes in the film, and this character basically falls to the ground and dies basically. So because of like her aspiration for freedom and justice and whatnot, and then it was the resonance with the death of Neda was so uncanny, so unbelievable that we were really shocked. We were like, our film is about 1950s, it takes place in 1953. And it's almost like identical. But the event was almost like identical, the way that it unfolded, like in 2009. So we were like really moved and like I mean it was reiterated that this cycle seems to be like not like I mean keeps on going on, cycle of violence, uprising, hope, and crushing it, and all of that. It seems that there's no end to this cycle, and then the film depicts, it's like it actually talks about this cyclical aspect of history, but through a very intimate and private lives of these four women. What happened last year in Iran marks historical change that is uh, unreversible. You cannot reverse this, and a taboo that was dominant, that was like this mysticism, this mystical aspect of the Islamic regime that was born from the revolution and continued until last year. That that was broken. It was an unveil. So, and this is I think historical event, and it marks like a turning point in at least in the history of the Islamic Republic. I think that all of these atrocities, everything that happened in Iran, like basically broke down this taboo and unveiled the nature and the face of the regime for the majority of the public. I think that if there were 15 to 20% of people that had basically doubts about the regime, or they were attached to the regime, in not the ones that are being paid by the regime, but that they were faithful to the regime, and they believed in the Islamic nature of the regime. After the events of 2009, these people are like completely so they're completely like divorced from the regime, and they're not. They have no doubt about like what this regime stands for. So what happens from now on, who knows? I mean, I think that what is happening is that the regime is like a dam in front of an ocean, basically. I think that the society in Iran, from what we saw, and from the reality of what is going on with the number of youth in Iran, the number of young people in Iran, the level of education, the participation of women in social, in society at large. You know, Iran is a civil society at this point. It's a modern society. It's a forward-looking society. And the regime, it really it doesn't understand it, and it doesn't belong to this population. Basically, it's at variance and in conflict. And unless this conflict is resolved, I don't know how it will be resolved. You know, it could be moved toward brutality, more brutality. It could move toward revolution at this point. I don't know. I don't know what would happen, but this conflict has to be resolved. There is no other way around it, I think.